Live from historic Denton, Maryland. This is Cory, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob, and we are joined today by the prolific, the only man making a significant investment in historic Denton, Maryland, Brian Tyler. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine.
Glad to have you here today.
I like how you said historic without the
emphasis. Emphasis added by Cory.
The like.
Sure. So we wanted to have you on because those people who don't know, first of all, obviously Cory's been down here to record several times. I've lived here for a very long time, and people probably know that we talk about going to the pub every time that we are down here. And Brian is what would you call yourself?
That's a good question. There's a lot of pressure on me right now, so I'd say I'm the guy who sweeps up in the morning.
Okay, that's very humble of you. Very humble of you.
Sweep cigarette butts and dispense, candy wrappers and lollipop bags and everything else.
Sure, yeah. So yeah. I would go with owner and proprietor. I think you're a little more important than just that.
I'll take all I can get.
So it's our favorite establishment here in Denton, and Cory, the only reason he would ever cross the bridge to come down here.
Well, I've maintained many times that this is like one of my favorite places to go to is the pub, and
thank you.
Especially the karaoke. Like it's probably my favorite karaoke of them all out there, just because it's such a chill time to hang out and be with people. And
now, did Rob perform last night, or
he did? I did. He did many a times.
I did.
I imagine that there's going to have to be a video included in the podcast here of him doing the whip and nay nay.
Yeah. He did the whip and nay.
I
just found out what that was 3 days ago.
Oh, yeah.
Rob's known for a while because he's been practicing his moves.
Sure.
Because he was telling me last night how I was whipping incorrectly.
Yes,
I didn't
the head. The head is a big part.
The head's a part of it. I have some cousins who get on Instagram and whip and nay nay pretty regularly.
I love it.
I think my favorite part too is which one was this? Like the
bop.
The bop, yeah. Rob really got into the bop.
Stanky leg.
Stanky leg.
Yeah. I was slightly intoxicated.
No.
One of the benefits of living so close here is that you can walk home or stumble home.
Staggering distance.
So I don't have to worry about it. So that happened, and sang a couple of songs, including Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
sure.
So that happened. So it tends to happen occasionally. But yeah, so the only reason Cory ever comes down here, besides to hang out with me,
sure,
is to come to the pub. So
yeah,
I
still need to go to the Rural Life Museum. We joked about it like a year ago, and I still haven't.
Go to the pub first.
Yeah. Now you've lived here. How long have you lived in Denton?
I have lived in Denton about 9 years now.
So the pub opened basically right after you moved here then?
The pub has been in existence 8 years.
Right, yeah. So, have you been to the Rural Life Museum yet?
I have been there.
Okay.
It's actually pretty nice.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I went there for an event, but I don't think I've ever been to actually see the Rural Life.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we should probably
do it together.
Well, you can just see the Rural Life outside of the museum. Like, it's free and open to the public.
I think it's like historical stuff. I think there's a cabin in there and stuff.
There are a lot of things that Denton is underrated for, and people don't really know what a cool place this is. You know? And things like that help to highlight it. And, you have to be a pretty intelligent person to truly appreciate it. So I think you guys would appreciate it.
Well, that's why I would. I don't know if Cory would appreciate it so much. But, he's from Baltimore, so we can't blame him.
Okay.
But so you're not from here originally.
I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And we don't hold it against
God's
you.
country.
No.
City of Champions, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh.
I worked at Three Rivers Stadium as a young man. The first time I poured beer was at that Three Rivers Stadium there.
All right, so you are a Steelers fan, and again,
I bleed black and gold.
We won't hold that against you.
One of his first jobs was clearing out the rats from the beer lines.
Hey, job's a job.
So did you grow up in Pittsburgh itself, or the outskirts, or?
Well, the cool thing is, and why I really like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's not, today's era football is a lot different, but when I was coming up, the team truly, it sounds corny now, but is a representation of the city and the people of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So every morning when we're going to middle school or elementary, we would see the actual Pittsburgh Steelers running drills by our school.
Oh, okay.
We could wave at Franco Harris. We could wave at Lynn Swan. You know, they lived in our neighborhoods. They hung out with our family members, and, you know, it was a real thing where you really felt connected to the team.
Right.
And the owner of the team, Art Rooney, lived 3 blocks down from me on the north side, which is a notoriously difficult environment to grow up in. And if you tell people today that you're from the north side, they will grab their purse. So when he being from the north side, me being from the north side, there's that connection.
Right.
He was a poor guy. You know, when he started out, I think he had a horse. He used to run horses or something. You know, he gambled, and he took a gamble on a team that was not too good, and he made it a class act organization. And for that reason, I'm a Steeler fan. Not so much for today and all that. I still have flashbacks of my childhood watching them and the Super Bowls and all that, but it's just, you know, good memories.
See, I can respect that.
Yeah, I think there's a very similar thing that happened there with the Ravens too, because like, you know, Modell did what he could once he came in, but once he sold it to Bisciotti, like,
Sure.
you know, Bisciotti put tons of money into the team and the facilities, and like I think it's a real big part of the, you know, community as well.
Exactly.
Like something bugs me about sports teams that just sort of like are, you know,
existing in the city.
just
Sure.
but aren't part of the city in any way, you
Right.
know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So you got a job pulling beers at Three River Stadium.
I was, you know, at Howard University. I'd come home for the summers, and that's one of the jobs I had, one of many. You know, Burger King is where it all began.
Okay. So
mopped.
how old were you when you worked your first job?
I was 17,
Okay, all right.
and I worked at Burger King, and I tried everything I could to get on the register.
Right.
But they said, get up there and grab that mop and get to mopping. And I said, is there any way I could do anything else? Fries, burgers, just a mop.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have flashbacks of that too.
When you're mopping today, do you think,
Absolutely.
like, look how far I've come.
I still mop.
Look how far I've come in my life.
Exactly.
Here I am.
Irony.
And so went off to Howard in D.C.
Yes.
All right, and so that's I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, because again, it might be. But D.C. is where you were living before you came to Denton. Is that right?
I lived in D.C. the better part of 25 years, and in the restaurant business the entire time. I actually hitchhiked from Pittsburgh to Washington. It wasn't intentional that we hitchhiked, but we got about 3 miles out of the city and our car broke down. So I had the choice to either go back to Pittsburgh or keep going, and I chose to keep going. And I lived on many floors, and I tiptoed into many houses late night that landlords didn't really want extra guests visiting. And I slept in many basements infested with spiders, and I could have spider bites to prove it if I had taken pictures of it. But, you know, I had a plan to stay, and my mother always said, you know, you always have a place to come back to. So I never felt that I couldn't take risks, because I knew that I could always go back, and I failed.
So now, were you a student at that time?
I was not a student. I had gone there. I applied, and I could not afford the tuition or the room, you know, or meal plan. So I eventually got enough to pay for the classes, but the meal plan and the housing were not part of it. So I just had to improvise, and I ate a lot of sardines, a lot of baked beans and crackers, and, you know, I made it through.
Yeah. So came back from your first year, and that's when you got the job at Three Rivers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And that being that young, I guess you hadn't worked in any kind of bar environment before.
It was a perfect fit. I felt right at home.
That's what I was going to ask.
This is the place for me.
Something clicked in there.
Women, alcohol. It just seemed to make sense.
Okay. So, all right. So you like that? You like that environment? I guess.
I loved it. It was like a fish to water.
And then but did you? I mean, how does that lead? You obviously go back to Howard in the fall.
Go back to Howard, get a job waiting tables, and, you know, again, I was on sardines and crackers, and I said after I was hired there, the buses stopped running at midnight, and I said, how on earth am I going to get home? And he looked at me like I had two heads and didn't understand the concept of tips and that I would make over $100 a night.
Right.
And after my first shift making over 100 a night, I pretty much never looked back. I said, there's something to this eating.
Right. It's nice.
It's nice.
And what were you? What did you major in at Howard?
I was a broadcast journalism major.
Oh wow!
Yes.
So this feels
a business minor. And
so you get to go back to your school days a bit here.
Yes, I always wanted to be on air, and then when I found out how much they had to travel and how little they made, I decided that maybe that was not the career for me.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you end up finishing at Howard?
I did not finish. I was there probably long enough to have had a master's, but I guess I got sidetracked with the work and the money, and unfortunately I was not able to finish my education.
So, and I know you have kids now.
I have 3 children.
Yeah, so big in pushing them on the education?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's one thing that, I have to find a positive in, and that I was able to go and I was able to come to Washington. I was able to meet my wife and have children. But one thing I'd always regret is that I did not finish what I'd started, and now I make it an extra effort to do so.
It's never too late, though.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you can go still.
Well, I'm rich now. I don't need to.
I did it without Howard's help.
Yeah.
That's right.
Maybe just find somebody who'll give you an honorary.
That's right.
Point,
I'll get one like Bill Cosby.
Well, not like Bill Cosby. You don't want to get it that way.
No, you're right.
You might just get it taken away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you got into the restaurant business.
Yes.
And started at the bottom. Really.
Started at the bottom. Now I'm here.
So how does that progression happen? What happened?
Well, many different restaurants over the years. Let's see. I guess it all sort of, Georgetown is the center of the universe for Washington.
Sure.
That's where I always waited tables and bartended. The interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is at the time when I was attempting to bartend in Washington, it was the biggest joke in the world because there were no black bartenders in Georgetown.
Well, now let me ask you, because I asked Cory how old he thought you were.
Yes.
How old are you?
I am 51. I will be 52 April 1st.
So, what year is this that you were?
Is that a joke? Is that
I said, you could be anywhere between 27 and 40, I would say, but I would never
27.
I would never have guessed 51.
Thank you.
But yeah, so what year is this?
This is 83, 84.
Okay.
And literally, every waiter's dream is to eventually become a bartender because that's where the money is. That's where the power is if you're going to stick in that industry. And naturally, I wanted to do so. And literally every place that I'd worked, it was a big joke that, there's no, it's a trusted position. And
right.
I'm from a different place, and a lot of these people didn't know me, and everybody wants to do it. So, of course, you're going to hire people that are closer to yourself.
Right.
And I got that. But also, I just never gave up, and I found a place, and I'd left one place, went to another, and finally I got a chance to do it. I loved it. I did really well at it, and we have these spotters that would come around and critique your service, and we grew to know who the spotters were, so we would put on shows and perform extra well for them, and then they would write these glowing reports about us and send them to the corporate office, and then our managers would get compensated. One time, I did not know there was a spotter, and there was this lady who was going on a flight, and she wanted something special for her husband, and is there any way I could do it? It was sort of against our policy to do what she'd asked, but I did it anyway because, it was all about service. And the spotter saw that, and he wrote this glowing report that catapulted me to the top of the food chain in the bar that I worked. And from there, I'd opened a lot of different bars for a lot of different people.
Okay.
Done a lot of nightclubs. I started at a place called Republic Gardens, one of my nightclub experience. I managed that for 4 years, and it revolutionized U Street, which was a dump, and now it's probably one of the hottest properties in Washington, and we all started there. And, the guys that had hired me were living in basement apartments with 3 kids, and I lived in this great gated community. I had a 2-seat Mercedes. And,
Right.
I thought I had it all going on. And then this guy showed me how it really works. And it's not about the bling and all that. It's about work ethic. And I saw him go from the bottom and his rise to now, if he's not in the Hamptons on the weekend, I don't know where he is.
So what kind of time are you talking about? I mean, you said this one review put you up over the top. Was it really that simple? Just like all of a sudden from...
Well, it was that simple. The place I'd always chosen to work at the best places.
Well,
this place has a reputation.
One thing I would like to put in there is, like, even though it was the one review, it was the fact that he was constantly working.
Oh, well, no.
That allowed that one review to happen. It's always, it's like the Michael Jordan thing about, like, I don't know if this is going to be somebody's only chance to see me play.
Sure.
And I don't care if I'm already, clinched the division and we're 10 games up. Somebody paid to see me.
I want to put on
the show. Yeah. Like when you're in a service industry like this, it's not about, like, just being good at your job one day, getting the eye of somebody.
I just want to make sure that's clear that, like, you're at the top of your game for this business, and then you get this one review, and they're like, "Hey, open a place for us after that."
Right. Well, the place that I had worked is called Houston's.
Okay.
Right. And they started in '76, and it was 4 guys who, one of them was a salad guy, one of them was a chef. One of them was a dishwasher, or, whatever. And they were so focused on service and so focused on the experience that people felt, down to the most minute details, as far as you had to have 4 Bic black click pens at all times.
Okay.
Your apron had to be creased down the middle. Your shirt had to be heavily starched, shoes polished, hair, everything had to be perfect so that the experience was... you were not part of the experience. You didn't take away from any of the food.
All background.
Yeah. So to work at this place, the average turnover was 18 months because it was just such an intense place to work. They would grill you constantly about the foods, and it was high pressure. So to rise in that place was almost unheard of,
Well, we had a guest a couple weeks ago talking about the challenge that some people shy away from that.
I love it.
But other people, the people who excel, are the ones who say, bring it on.
Exactly.
I want to have that. Challenge me.
And when I'm not being challenged, I'm bored to tears.
Yeah. I think that's just in general, like, one of the biggest keys to success you can have is just the desire, the drive to, like, continue. Because, like, even if you have... I feel like if you continue having the drive, even if you're in a place you don't want to be, like, eventually you'll get there if you keep pushing yourself and keep wanting to, like, step up and stuff like that.
And that's why I'm trying to maintain my friendship with Mr. Cheek. I know where he's going to
Someday we'll take the corporate jet somewhere.
Right.
That'd be nice.
I can't wait.
All right, so I interrupted you. So you go and U Street, and again, people I think have a hard time picturing this, but the places where you hang out now were not always good places. If you go to the Naval Yard now in D.C.,
it's ridiculous.
It's nice, but 5 years ago when I was there,
scary.
You don't get off the subway there. You step out of the subway and say, "Oh, wrong stop," and get right back on.
Yeah.
But now it looks great.
Sure.
But U Street was also not a great neighborhood. It was kind of run down, and it was prime for gentrification in the early 90s, and that's when you were there.
Well, yes, and one of my mentors, his name is Cory. He's from Iran. He, I worked for him at various times at the saloon he owned in Georgetown in the 80s. We had a doorman there who's now my best friend. His name is Abibwal Fakati Selassie. He's an Ethiopian gentleman. He was able to bartend one night a week, and it was the biggest deal for all of us waiters who had this aspiration to become bartenders. We would all go there for his one day of bartending. And Cory was an early investor in U Street, and he bought, he would always go where there was going to be a metro or there was going to be a gay population. That was his 2 secrets to success.
He knew it was coming.
He knew.
Yeah.
So he invested really early. He bought up half of the city or half of the block. And, another example of someone who had a strong work ethic. He came here as an immigrant. He owned or he was a busboy at Mr. Smith's, I believe, in Georgetown. He was always teased for his accent, that he could not fit in with all the waiters who had all the flash and the cash and the bartenders. And he had drive, and he said, I'm going to show all these guys. He now owns half of Georgetown,
right,
half of U Street. And he was my landlord at one point, and he lives in a building. I went up into his room, and this is obviously a multimillionaire. In his room, he has a bed, he has a chair, and on that chair, he has a clock.
That's it.
That is it. He has no desire for, the money.
Right.
It's not the money to him. It's something more personal.
Probably drives like a 97 Toyota Tercel.
Doesn't drive.
Doesn't drive anywhere?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So people like that, U Street, I had an early footing in there. Mm-hmm. And it just, if you had seen it before, we used to have a guy who his whole job was to clear out the rats in the basement. So every day he would come up with 2 rats in each hand, and he would set them on the bar in front of me and scare me half to death. But yeah, so it's a lot different now than it was then.
Yeah. So you started working there, and
yes.
when that started turning over,
that turned over and did well. Subsequently, from there, the gentleman's name is Mark Barnes. He's probably one of the biggest promoters in Washington. He bought a place called Dream, and Dream was a place that held 5,000 people.
Is that a strip club? I feel like I've been there before.
No. It's not.
I think you've been to a strip club named Dream.
Yes. I don't
this is not the same place.
There's a lot of things I can't say on the air about your experiences at a strip club. However, Dream is a, place, like I said, it holds 5,000 people.
Right.
$20 cover. You can do the math. I think we were there for 3 months, and I think we made $3 million in 3 months.
Man.
So, from there, I knew that there was, I was able to take on bigger projects and challenges, because I'd seen people that were no smarter than any of us do it. And I felt, if they could do it, why can't I do it?
Right.
I just kept missing my opportunity to do it. I tried to buy my own place, and financing would fall through. I tried, different chances I take, and nothing seemed to work until I was able to move here to Denton. Mm-hmm. I'd opened a few places for my good friends. He's now the ambassador to the UAE, and the U.S. ambassador. He is from the United Arab Emirates, and he is their ambassador to the United States.
Gotcha, yeah.
And he flew me over there, and we opened something called the Coliseum. It's in the Marina Yacht Club in Abu Dhabi, and I was there for the better part of 9 months.
And when was that exactly?
Well, that was before 9/11.
Yeah.
Things were a lot easier.
Yeah.
But I think it was the early, mid-90s.
Here's the weird thing, that like random Saturday night, it's a little slow and you'll be hanging out, and Brian comes out with a picture of him in Abu Dhabi in front of a club, and he's like, oh yeah, no, I flew over there and opened a club for him. Yeah. It held 10,000, some ridiculous number of people.
Very cool.
And so I opened this place for him, and I'm like, how does that just happen?
Yeah.
How does that just? Oh well, yeah, I know the guy, and now he's the ambassador for the UAE.
He was not always the ambassador.
No, he wasn't that. But just like, oh, now he is. Now I know the guy who's the ambassador.
And now he doesn't call me.
Yeah, of course not.
It must have been a wild time to be there, though, because I mean, like,
the culture is a lot cooler than the media gives it credit for being. People are very loving, and they love their children, and they, it's a place where you can obviously leave your car running, and your, doors open, because there's no tolerate crime.
You take the car, you lose your hand.
And that's a real thing.
Yeah,
and you grow to appreciate women on a different level, because all you can see are their eyes. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was weird at first, but in some ways maybe it's freeing, as to not have everyone Google at you and judge your looks, and you can just sort of be like in a Halloween costume all the time.
So how long were you over there?
9 months.
Okay.
I could have stayed longer, but for all the money they have, they didn't really pay me the money that I needed. So.
Right.
But it was a great experience, and I would never trade anything for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even in 9 months, though, I guess that's long enough. It's the kind of thing where like you go somewhere, and after that amount of time, you either decide you're going to be in for a lot longer, or you've gotten everything out of it.
I could have definitely stayed longer. I mean, the difference, me being in Abu Dhabi and being in charge of running a major nightclub, being an African American, in the struggles of the civil rights in the 60s and all, going to a place where I am the one who has to tell another class of person that they are not good enough to come into this place. Was kind of like being on Star Trek, and you're all of a sudden you're the blue person instead of the red person, or the right side of your face is the good side or the bad side. So that was an interesting dynamic, and I think if more people could get out of this country and see that, even though there is racism everywhere, you're not always the bad guy.
Right.
In Abu Dhabi, it didn't matter that I was black. I was American.
Right.
And I knew what I was talking about because of that. And that was a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think that people, that's exactly right. People don't have that understanding that, racism is unfortunately universal.
Yeah. And
the color of your skin isn't universal because wherever you are, it differs about who they judge.
Yeah.
I know that in
in the pub itself, there's the no Irish need apply sign that's in there, and that was, as somebody who had Irish immigrant family and stuff like that that was a very real thing, and it's kind of shocking how we think America's such a young country compared to the rest of the world, and we think back about things that happened 200 years ago as the ancient times kind of, but
it's very
nothing
recent.
Well, but I think it's weird too that the money in the Middle East is even newer than that.
Oh, yeah.
Because the racism that you see now is a lot of South Asian and Southeast Asian, where if an Indian person or a Filipino was there working, that's the person you're not allowed to let in your club.
They're called the dirty people.
Right. And so how weird is it to be... I can only imagine.
It blows your mind. And like I said, more people need to get out and experience that sort of thing to really put things in perspective when you're here. When you're here, you're just sort of always under the boot of this phenomenon. And then when you get out, you're like, you know what? There's more to it. It's deeper than just your color. It's deeper than a lot of things, and you'd never know that unless you travel. So I'm a big proponent of traveling. I would call my mother from all over the world, and I'd say, guess where I am? I'm on the Baltic Sea. I'm going to Sweden. I'm going to Finland. I'm going to Amsterdam. And this is when I barely had $20 in my pocket. I'd find a way to travel. So it's really important.
And last year, I have discovered that if I have $1,000 in the bank, it's not doing me any good, and I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and somebody's going to get it. I would prefer to go somewhere and see something and experience it.
Be honest, somebody's not just going to get that. I think Sally Mae or is going to get that.
To be fair, it would be my last fuck you to Sally Mae to say, I took a trip, you get nothing. Screw you. Because nobody co-signed on my loan, so they just get screwed if I die. But in the end, that's what it. I agree with you. So your kids, have they gotten to travel?
No, we are. We've been living hand to mouth to get this pub up and going. So we've not had a lot of time to travel. They've never been on an airplane, and all of their friends travel.
Well, they're a little young, though. So.
Yeah, they're 11, 9, and 7.
Right.
So as long as they can, travel at some point.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
I think I didn't go anywhere too far away from home until I was probably 16 or so, personally.
Sure.
And everything that happened prior to that, all the vacations before that sort of seemed like, an amalgam of just the same thing over and over again.
I think we only did family vacations, and that was fell asleep, woke up at grandma's house. It was like magic. I remember falling asleep on my couch, and then when I woke up, we were in grandma's yard, and it was like getting shuffled into the house.
Well, my family used to go to Ocean City every single year because the bar convention was in Ocean City. And I think,
and I think his dad's an attorney.
Yeah, I think they went to Ocean City. It was always like right around senior week, and I think they did it so that all the ambulance chasers could make some extra money while they were down there.
Right.
But the 15 straight years of Ocean City all felt like the same exact vacation in retrospect.
Yeah.
Because like it all sort of mixes together. But like when I was 17 or 15 and went to England, that still sticks with me. Sure. And like that, like being in a completely new place was like...
I might have been in England at the same time. That's weird. Because that was when I went too.
Were you in London?
Yeah. Well, we were in the UK for 3 weeks.
Oh, well.
Which, by the way, it's amazing.
Yeah.
To take kids that are like just that... That would be what I would tell you. When they get to be middle of the teens, that's the time to go. Because it formulates memories that you will never forget.
I've also thought that it would be a great thing to take kids based off of what they're going to be learning in school. Because like in high school... Mm-hmm. was a lot of American history, like as far as like coming across from England, kind of American history, and like having been in England just right before that, it sort of gave me like an idea of like a broader understanding of what I was hearing in school.
Right. So now you need to take your kids to the Circle and Line Factory for the new Common Core math. So you just have to take them to the factory where they do lines and circles, because that's apparently what they're learning in school now. I don't understand any of that. But so before you left, had you met your wife before you went?
No, I met my wife when I worked at Sequoia, which is an outdoor bar in Georgetown, and it's on the water and it's beautiful. And the first time I'd seen her, I thought that she was way too mature to ever take someone like me seriously.
Right.
And then I found out she was 10 years younger than me, and it was a win.
Her actual age and your maturity level,
absolutely,
right there.
Met perfectly right there.
So you came back from living overseas for a while, and just jumped right back into working here.
Jumped right back in. Worked in Old Town Alexandria for a while, running food. Sequoia came available, which was another phenomenon. I mean, it held 800 people inside, 800 outside. Turns out that my roommate. We were waiters together, and she is an Irish girl. She became the general manager.
Okay.
Part of her being the general manager meant that anything her roommate needed, I could get, because she needed a roommate who could pay his portion of the rent. So I went from being a poor waiter to a very wealthy bartender.
Yeah, so that's got to be a shock, though, because you go from running a place here to running a place in Abu Dhabi to... waiting tables
again. I couldn't get they said I was not the right type for the bar.
So I can't even...
It's crazy.
Yeah. No, so all that work that you did before, none of that really mattered. Your resume didn't matter at all.
Did not matter at all.
You're back in Georgetown, and I need you back on tables.
Get on those tables. They didn't give me the mop, so they said.
Well, that's good.
Right.
Yeah. So you lucked out, though, and you got the...
Lucked out.
Got the bartender gig back.
And... we would, on a busy night, we would sell about 4 bartenders. We'd sell about $25,000 worth of liquor. There was no food, and you're talking about the elite of the elite on the water there. All the congressmen and senators, and Clinton would show up all the time and give the crowd a wave, and everybody would clap. It was a cool thing. So we'd average about $1,000 a night on the busy nights. And
you would take home.
I'd take home $1,000 on Friday, Saturday. 7 to 8, and then Sunday another 5 to 6. So, it puts you into a different mindset to have that much money with really no bills,
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I miss it.
But so you also had the chance to meet your lovely wife.
I met my bride.
Yeah.
And nothing has been the same since. We still go back there for our anniversary.
Just the place that you met?
The place where we met.
Yeah.
And, she changed my life. And
you pick up a shift and you serve her drink.
Do whatever I have to do.
Make that $1,000 for the night.
That's right.
So, obviously you didn't immediately move to Denton.
No.
From there.
No. I worked there probably about 14 years at the same place. On and off. And, I'd go build something in the winter and come back in the summer because it was a summer bar. So every winter you have to figure something you're going to do. Sometimes I would go to Brazil for a couple of months.
Okay.
the people there before me would go to Germany all the time, and I thought that was really cool. I'm like, so you mean to tell me you work in the summer and you just chill all winter and you do whatever you want? I need to be behind this bar.
Well, I guess you make that money though that you can.
You make that much money. So
were you like? Would you go to Brazil to work, or
no?
You just
we would just go to hang out.
Oh,
I mean, Brazil. The real at the time was 4-1.
Right. Yeah.
So. For me to take a plane from America to Brazil is more than their parents would make in a year.
Right.
So when they hear an American accent, they go crazy.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. So.
I was going to say it was when we went to spring break. I want to say maybe we found a bar that was off. We got the everything paid.
Sure.
But then every night we would wander off that place, and we found a little hole in the wall bar. You put a 20 American on the bar, and then it was 11 pesos to $1, and the beers were 1 peso, 1 beer for 1 peso, and just put a 20 on the bar and just say, keep them coming.
Right, and that's a great
whatever
thing.
was left over at the end of the night was the bartenders, and we get sloshed and stumble back. Don't carry anything on you, because if they see watches or wallets, you're probably going to get robbed.
They're
otherwise,
very fast
it was good.
people.
But it's I didn't even really think of it that way. Once you get there, it's real cheap once you're there.
It's on.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a couple of travel tips that you weren't expecting to get. Check the exchange rates and travel often.
I think it's 1-to-1 now, so maybe the thrill's gone.
Well, the American economy is in the shitter. So what do you want? But I'm sure there's another. We were talking about going to Greece. Was I talking to you about going to Greece?
Well, we talked about Greece a couple weeks ago when the debt crisis was.
Well, maybe I was talking to EP that now would be. Oh yeah, it was because we were talking about places to go, and Greece would be a great trip now.
Yeah, because
if they go back to their own currency, it'll be so devalued that you just basically be able to go in there with American currency and. Like Euro Trip, where it's like you flip them a nickel, and the guy's like, "Screw you! I'm opening up my own hotel." It'll be that good. So, anyway, you were traveling. You went to Brazil. Was this just 14 years of working in the summer, Brazil in the winter?
Probably most of that was good times, but there's always hard times too. There's always years that it rained a lot. You didn't make a lot, so there was some. It wasn't always that good, but when it was good, it was really good.
Yeah,
and something that I recommend.
Absolutely.
Live well.
How old were you when this was going on? Give me some hope for my life.
My wife is the one that keeps track of my years.
Okay.
And she will tell me from this interview that I'm all over the place and I don't know what year I did what, but I know I did it.
I'm just hoping that it was sometime in your 30s and not in your 20s, because I want to hope that I haven't missed it.
No, it was my late 30s actually. I got married at 41. That's when we finally had our daughter Brielle. So I had a long time to party, and it was mostly in my late 30s, so you have not missed much at all.
Good. All right. I still got time.
Yes.
I feel like 20s are just like the time where you feel like you should be partying, and then it's just never quite living up to the expectations. Like, you're always like...
What? You don't get to agree to that, mister. I went to Abu Dhabi and opened bars everywhere. He's like, late 20s were a drag. My world traveling and such. It's such a drag.
Right.
But so you got married at 41.
Got married at 41. Little Whitechapel in Vegas.
Really?
Wanted to do the drive-through, but my wife said that would be too much. So
did you go to Vegas with that? That was the intent? You're going to get married?
That was the intent. She was there on business. I showed up, surprised her, and we got married.
We went. God, it's been more than a year now.
Yeah, since Dirty 30.
Dirty 30. And the one rule that I told him when we got on the plane was like, do not let me get married this weekend. There will be a lot of drinking, and I assume that there will be women around. Do not let me get married. So
I love it. I love that trip so much. And I think, no, it was the Patriots. It wasn't the Steelers. I was going to say, because all I remember is placing a bet on a team that I hated. Yeah. But I knew that, so the Patriots were in the AFC divisional round or something like that at that point. And the spread on it was just ridiculous. Yeah. It was like Patriots by 3.5, and I'm just like, oh, they're going to cover that.
Sure.
Either they're going to get blown out or they're going to cover it. There's no way that it's a 3.5 point game. So like I put like $100 on the Patriots, and we're like playing. What were we playing? Like blackjack.
Yeah,
and,
for 5 hours.
Yeah, in like old Vegas, and then like all of a sudden I see LeGarrette Blount like break out this huge touchdown run, and I stand up like an idiot. I'm like, "Run, you bastard, run!" Like
the dealer's like who's dealing is so terrified because she doesn't see the screen behind her. So she's just
all she sees is like a big drunk kid just like standing up going like, "Run!"
Right.
Well, yeah. So that was our Vegas experience. No marriages, lots of drinking and lots of carousing, but nothing. So you show up and you surprised her.
Yeah.
She wasn't horrified. She was like, okay, let's do this.
Let's do this.
Good for you.
We had a good time.
So, did you that's 9 years. That means you moved very quickly after that.
Yes, we had a baby, and then we had another baby, and we were in a 700 square foot condo, and we were sort of being priced out of DC. That was the height of the housing boom.
Right.
It's 2007, 2006. So, we couldn't buy another house in the community we lived in, and we figured it's time to branch out. I'd originally thought that I'd just move out to Denton, and I would commute back to DC every day, and that would work out. But, you find yourself going 50 miles an hour down Route 50 fast asleep, and then you wake up driving, and you're like, I probably should do something closer to home. So, the pub became available. One of my neighbors said, "Hey, there's this cool corner restaurant," and I thought surely in a million years nobody would ever sell that, so I'd looked everywhere else besides there to get my own place. Turns out that the best location in town was for sale. I went there and tried to buy it, and I guess I underbid, and he said no way. I went there. I went to Washington, D.C. to talk to my partner, Brendan Kelly, who owns the Irish Times. Took him out there with me. We made the same offer, and we got the place.
Okay, so wait. So you make an offer and it get rejected.
Yes.
And then you brought in a partner. An Irish partner, and made the same offer, and it was accepted?
Accepted.
Strange.
It's kind of like that. It's the story from South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, where they send it to the MPAA for the movie rating, and they're just like, this is like a NC-17 rating or something like that, and it's just like, you have to change these 15 things before we can even consider giving you an R. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll work on that. And they just like take it back, and for 3 weeks they sit on it, and they send it back exactly the way it was. Right. They got an R the second time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, luckily, though, you got the bid was approved, and it used to be the Market Street Cafe.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, I actually didn't live in Denton at the time. I can understand your commute because at the time that you were doing that, I was driving from Denton to Columbia every day.
Sure.
So I was working a 10-hour shift there, and then driving from Denton to there and back every day. And that's sometimes you do that. I would like open my eyes and realize I was sitting in the driveway and not remember having left work. So
and I would sleep in the when we were building the pub, I would sleep in the back of my Suburban. I had an old white Suburban, and I had a pillow in the back.
Yeah.
And I'd find a parking lot in D.C. that was kind of secluded, and I just sleep there just so I would not have to make that commute. Because, my shift started at 3, which meant I had to leave Denton about 1:30. I got out of there at 3, which meant I got home around 5.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of in-between time.
No. Yeah. No, there is not.
And I did that for the first year we were building the pub, So
yeah.
It was a lot to ask.
And if anybody wants to see pictures of the pub, you can check out publichouseonline.net.
.com.
Is it .com?
Yes.
I have it written down. Did I write it down incorrectly?
Maybe.
Publichouseonline.com.
Yes.
You're totally right. Yeah, Public House Online. Market Street Public House on Facebook. Market Street Pub on Twitter and Instagram.
And now we have Snapchat.
Snapchat as well. Oh, the shenanigans you'll find on Snapchat. I can only imagine. But
I wish I knew about this last night, so I could have gotten more Rob whipping and nay-naying last.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can check out pictures there. It's absolutely beautiful. It's on the corner of Market Street and 2nd Street in downtown Denton. So you move here, you renovate the old Market Street Cafe.
Yes.
And I mean, how did you find the town? Was the town easy to work with? I mean, were they excited about you doing this?
Well, I think the town went through a transition when the bypass came through, and it forced a lot of businesses out of
Right.
town. So by the time I got here, it was pretty much they were open for anything,
Right.
And they've been very supportive, and they've been very helpful. And Jock Walsh, who's sort of one of the founding heads of this town, had sort of pretty much held my hand through the process of filing proper permits and papers to do a pub. And it was so over the top what my idea was that it worked. Georgetown's filled with places just like mine.
Yeah.
And I've worked at most of them. And what I try to do is take a little piece of everything that I thought was cool about every place I'd ever worked and incorporate it into one building.
And I gotta say, it's strange for around here, but normal for everywhere else I've ever lived.
Which is that's
what
funny,
I mean? It's New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, D.C.
Right.
all have that same Irish pub feel where it's a narrow building but long, deep, and it's kind of got its little nooks and crannies, and you sit down in it. And more around here are the 3,000 square foot. Almost like steel pole buildings where it's just big, wide, and open. And this is not that. It's very intimate and it's very close, and it's got a nice little feeling to it.
Well,
so,
thank you.
Yeah.
I put a lot of my heart into that building, a lot of my time, and my wife says, I don't know if anyone could appreciate how much time you put into this. And when people tell me things about it that only I would notice, it really makes me feel happy.
Well, I certainly hope that everybody appreciates it, because it is, again, I think for people who need to get out of Caroline County a little bit and see a little bit more of the world, it's a little bit of the world coming to them here.
And the coolest thing is you've not seen anything yet.
Right, which is one thing I do want to ask you about, because the windows in the building next door have been blacked out for some time now.
Yes.
And my understanding is that's you're doing.
Well, we are in the process of a major expansion. And, that building was once a Ford dealership in the 1920s.
Right.
It was the Model A building.
Wow.
The Model A was on the roof of that building. And so it was all one structure. And over the years, it had been broken up, and it was a five and dime and this and that. And so what we're attempting to do is bring back the structure as it originally was. We're going to open up the walls, and we're going to expand on the brand that we have already established and add a few features that people might like. We could have some lot more live music in Denton. There's going to be it holds 250 people in one facility for events and weddings and things like that, and live entertainment. And the other space we're buying holds 150 people, so we're going to have a total of almost 500 seats.
Excellent.
Available, but probably not all at once at first, but just the potential is unlimited.
Slowly moving that direction.
Yes.
So do we have a timeline on that? When we're looking?
September 10th is when we have our final hearing that will allow me to get a building permit. I will take that building permit to Providence State Bank, at which time they will ask me to sign a few more sheets of paper, and theoretically that will be the beginning of the project, and it should be completed by the spring.
So looking at a summer 2016?
Yes. And the Halloween party that year will be something like you've never seen before.
So we're getting excited for Halloween 2016.
Oh my goodness! Wait until you see what I do.
Well, I'm just like I'm looking forward to myself, because like I love. I've every single time I come down here, it feels like there's something new that's going on. And like I remember when I first saw the bus.
Yes.
And I was super excited about that. And then just when we were walking to Summerfest, Rob met me in the parking lot back there, and I saw the taps on there.
It's now been converted into a mobile kegerator.
Yeah.
And he started explaining to me about the smoker and everything like that.
There's lights. There's a disco ball. It's a whole thing.
Oh, I can't.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So in the summers, for football season, what we plan to do is we're going to smoke meets out front, and we're going to try to show football games and make it sort of like a legitimate tailgate party.
All right.
And hopefully that bus will be a part of it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so lots of exciting things coming in.
Lots of exciting things.
Football season 2015. Is this where you're talking about the tailgate party?
Yes. That's
okay.
I think the kickoff is mid-September,
Yep.
early September.
Yeah, it's like,
We will be out there that weekend.
All right. And then 2016, hopefully, if everything goes to plan.
It's on like popcorn.
Oh, and then keep your calendars open for Halloween 2016.
My favorite movie is Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, no.
you and Rob both.
I can only imagine. That just makes the mind wander. I need to get in shape then. Okay, let's see. Got to get in shape by Halloween 2016.
Right.
Well, yeah, so...
I like the fact that Rob, probably even wearing a mask, people are just like, hey, Rob.
the problem, of course, being that half the people at the party have already seen me naked, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true, too.
Oh, well, anyway, I do want to thank you for coming by. It has been a pleasure to hear the story. I was telling Cory that the things that you have done in your life, I think he would be amazed by.
And I was.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that I thanked you at the time, but I still am so thankful for you letting me shoot my first, like, real movie in the pub.
Well, I loved it.
And, like, I still remember that Rob was working it all out for me, like being able to come in with the cameras and stuff. And he said, like, you know, like, oh yeah, we're on. Yeah. It's all good for Saturday or whatever it was, or it was Sunday.
Sunday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, when we were hoping it would be like a little quieter.
Right.
And I came in and I had like a bunch of stuff with me, and I sat down at the bar and I said hey to you, and I was just like, oh yeah, ready to shoot, and you're just like, what? I'm like, oh no, Brian.
Just mention Rob Cheek, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Well, the funny thing is, me coming here, I just wanted to. I'm a fan of your podcast and what you guys do, and I think it's really well done and well edited, and just the coolest thing ever. I just wanted to see where you work. I had no plan to come here and tell this story, so I hope I've not dragged on too much about myself. So.
No, I wanted to have you on because I think like you're a guy, as I said, you're the one guy who I think is making a real investment in this town. And more people need to know, I think more people need to know who you are. They need to know why you like this town so much and what you're doing. And more people need to support it.
Okay, well, thank you.
So I really think that people need to follow your example and make an investment here.
I agree.
It's a good town.
And I legitimately like the pub like a lot. So it's one of my favorite places to go. So I mean, it's I'm always up for helping you out with whatever
thank
you got going on.
And when we were talking about it, I mean, Cory jumped in and said, you know, you've supported us through giving us a place to shoot and everything else. So anything we can do, obviously, we're there for it. So.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, so thank you for coming by. One more time, it's Public House. I mean, not get it wrong again. I have it written down. PublicHouseOnline.com, on Facebook, Market Street Public House, and Market Street Pub on Twitter, Instagram, and now Snapchat as well. So make sure you check out all three of those.
If you're looking for more O The Anthem, OTheAnthem.com, Cory at OTheAnthem.com, O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595.
And you can find me on all your social networks, Robert N. Cheek.
Social.
You can find me on all your social network, Robert N. Cheek. Make sure you check out robertncheek.com for links to my books and to all of the other pages, foundingthefuture.us and adeaddrop.com and everything else. So
buy Rob's books.
Buy my books, please.
Buy the books.
And we did, like, actually do good here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we have Brian keeping us in shape, it's
But anyway, so as always, you are listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network. For Cory and Brian and the whole Market Street Public House crew, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Let's all go drink.
Yay!